Hi everyone, and welcome to video number 6 on the American West. Now, the previous video we looked at all the different reasons or factors, push and pull, why people decided to make this very, very difficult and dangerous journey to move west to the American West. This video, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to look at the actual journey itself. Now, people from all over the East here, in the eastern part of the United States, when they decided to travel to the west, whether it's Oregon or down to California, they all made their own way through the eastern half of the United States to this place, Independence, Missouri. Now, the clue's in the name, Independence. If you remember from the previous video, some of the reasons why people wanted to move was the chance for a new life, some, as they saw it, freedom. So they all met up in Independence. Now, Independence to Oregon, about 3,200 kilometers. Independence to California, about 3,800 kilometers. Nowadays, in modern times, ladies and gentlemen, a plane, you would take about a 3.5-hour flight. If you took the train, roughly 2 days. Back then, these people, these settlers, were looking at a journey of between 4 to 6 months. That was the difference. It was a huge undertaking, and therefore people had to prepare properly. It's the old saying, ladies and gentlemen, fail to prepare, then prepare to fail. So preparation before the journey actually began was very, very vital. So, what was the preparation all about? What did they have to get right so that they would be able to survive and thrive on the journey? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the first thing they had to do was get themselves a good guide. Once they'd arrived in Independence, they would have to look around and sign up to a good mountain man, hopefully one who knew the way on the Oregon Trail, hopefully one who was very experienced, one who had been that way before, because they would have to know the location of all the forts along the way. Here they are, ladies and gentlemen. Let's have a look. Number 1, Fort Laramie. Number 2, Fort Bridger, named after the very famous mountain man, Jim Bridger. Number 3, Fort Hall. And number 4, Fort Boise. Now, they would have to know where the forts were, how long it took to get to each fort. Why would that be, do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Well, the forts were really important because they were places of protection, places where the weary, tired travellers could rest, and, vitally important, restock their supplies. So a good guide, a good mountain man was essential. Second thing, when they arrived in Independence, the mountain man would be there offering, "I'll take you, come with me." They would travel in a group, usually a minimum, absolute minimum of 20 wagons. I'll talk about wagons in a minute. Maybe 100 people. Some of the groups, or parties as they were known, were even larger. Why? Why would people decide to go on this journey together? Have you got any ideas? I'll have to put my thinking hat on, my cowboy hat. Well, here's a few answers. If you go in a group, hopefully the people in the group will have a variety of different skills. Maybe one would be a doctor. Maybe one would be an expert on, I don't know, a carpenter or a joiner to fix things if things went wrong. So you would need people together with a variety of different skills and abilities. That's the first thing. Second thing, these people could help each other, look after each other, and offer each other protection. If they were going across a difficult environment, it made more sense to go as a member of a team, a large group. What else did they do in their preparation? Well, they had to gather essential supplies: pots, pans, blankets, rope, a supply of water, although obviously that would run out on the way and they'd have to replace it. Food, obviously essential. 4 to 6 months. Stopping at forts, yes, they could restock, but what sort of food would they take? There's no fridges, no freezers, so they had to take what was known as salt pork. It was salted because then the meat would last longer and it wouldn't go bad or go off and cause problems. So food and essentials for the journey all had to be bought and organised at independence. And of course, the most important thing was the wagon. Sometimes they were called wagon trains. The wagon, also known as a covered wagon, because it had a canvas covering. Now, these wagons, about a metre wide, ladies and gentlemen, maybe 3 metres long, maybe slightly more. The wagon, the frame of it that they put almost like the canvas over, so it's almost like a tent in a way. The frame would be made of hickory. The bottom bit, the wooden bed, hardwood, for example, oak. And then, of course, the undercarriage linking to the axle and linking to the wheels. Wooden wheels. These were the most vital part of all. Important, but often they were the weakest bit, because if they're going over a very rough ground, rocky ground, the wheels and the axles could break. And this is where it made sense to go as a team, because if your wagon wheel has broken, a team of you might be able to repair it and put it back together. The idea of cooperation and helping each other. So the wagon was essential. It had to be a home, a hospital, your car, it's a form of transport, a storehouse, and almost like a fortress in case you were attacked. The wagon and the mountain man, they were possibly the 2 most important things that you had to get right. It's like that old joke, ladies and gentlemen. One man says to the other, "Oh, I don't like wagons." And then the other fella says, "Well, why not?" And the first bloke says, "Well, they're a real drag." Sorry, totally unfunny joke. Wagons were essential. Now, once you've got to independence, once you've made all your preparation, mountain man, food, supplies, wagon, you had to leave at the right time of the year. And that's why you needed the experience of a mountain man. The best month to go was April, because once you leave in April here, this bit, which was quite flat, the plains, grass would grow there, and that would be the food for your animals, oxen, that were pulling your wagons. So you had to go in about April. Now, these oxen, great big huge animals, they were better than horses because they were stronger. They could pull a heavy wagon much more successfully. But the downside is sometimes the oxen were really, really slow. Maybe 3 kilometers an hour, a couple of miles an hour, depending on what the ground, the level was like. So if you're doing 20 kilometers a day, maybe some days, and you've got over 3,000 to go, you can see why the journey would be so long. So you left here in about April, but here are some mountains, the Rocky Mountains. There's the South Pass, founded by Jedediah Smith from the previous video. Here are more mountains. There, the Blue Mountains, and here the Sierra Nevadas, just before you got to California. So leave about April, and then hopefully you are over the mountains before winter, because you did not want to get caught in the mountains by the snow. Now, it's not snow that we have, just a couple of inches. We're talking feet and feet of snow. 30 centimetres, 60 centimetres, a metre. So leave in April and hopefully there, let's say November. That was the plan. Now, there were many, many problems on the actual journey itself. As I've said, we've got the mountains. As I've said, some of the good things are these forts, which I've already explained. Notice there were at least 3 different destinations. The black route here, all the way up to Oregon. Portland, Oregon City, the state of Oregon. The Oregon Trail. Many people went that way for land. Some followed the Oregon Trail, but then diverted and went on this green trail down here to California for the gold. The California Trail. One group that I'll look at in the next video followed the Oregon Trail, but then branched off this red bit here, ladies and gentlemen, and went down to what they built in Salt Lake City in the state of Utah. And they were the Mormons. I'll discuss them in a later video. So they're the 3 different trails. They all had problems as they go west. Try and remember those 2 words, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what were the problems? Well, as you can see here, go west. If you remember that, hopefully it'll help you to remember some of the key problems. Now, first of all, I want to say, get lost. I'm not being rude. I'm not being rude. It was a big problem. If you did not know the route and your mountain man is rubbish and you got lost on the way, then you were in big trouble, ladies and gentlemen. One example of that I'll come back to in about 5 minutes. So that was your first possible big problem. Going wrong, getting lost, losing your way. The second one, different obstacles on the way. Now the first part of the journey I said was quite flat. And you would make good ground there, good time. But as you got further up towards the mountains, whether it's the Rocky Mountains, the Blue Mountains, the Sierras, obviously that's a big problem, particularly if you've got some wagons to get over. So obstacles come in. Mountains, rivers, huge rivers to cross. Now sometimes on the Oregon Trail there would be like a ferry to get you across. You'd have to pay. But some rivers, particularly if there's a lot of rain, they will swell, they will rise. So rivers was an obstacle. What else? Deserts. Okay, sometimes on parts of the trail you have to go across a desert, whether it's made of a little bit of sand, sometimes salt deserts. So deserts also obstacles. Rocky outcrops, you've got to hoist huge weights and get your wagons up quite steep rocky outcrops. The mountains, I've already mentioned snow, which leads us on to the weather. These also could cause you problems. Extremes of weather, sometimes very, very hot, particularly going through the deserts. Lack of water for your oxen. You've got to keep your animals watered, otherwise they won't be able to have the strength to pull your wagons. So weather is an important part. Extreme heat, and then extreme cold, snow in the winter. Also, parts of the way along the way, sometimes they had quicksand, and then others, depending on the weather, remember, extreme wind would give you sandstorms. Now you've got to be prepared. Luckily, I am prepared. Now I look like a bit like an outlaw or a bank robber. But these would be vital so that you could push your way and keep on travelling, even through sandstorms. Because remember, you've got to get over the mountains before the snow. So these kerchiefs, part of your essential equipment. Well, who would tell you to bring these? Your good mountain man, right the way back in Independence, Missouri. Oh, that's a bit better. So, weather was another problem. The E, exhaustion, 4 to 6 months. It wasn't a short journey, ladies and gentlemen. It's almost travelling for half a year in your wagon, not in a normal bed, in difficult conditions, hot temperatures, cold temperatures, going up mountains, crossing deserts with your family, with young children. Maybe your wife is pregnant, having the baby on the way. People got exhausted. Tricky. Steep mountains. I've already mentioned that, particularly with the weather. Getting a wagon over a steep mountain is very, very difficult. Lifting them or hoisting them up a rock face. Okay. The oxen, remember, they were good, strong animals, but they were slow. So steep mountains. And the last one, diseases like typhoid and in particular cholera. Between 1840 and 1860, ladies and gentlemen, over 30,000 people died on the Oregon Trail. Maybe about 1 in 10 of the people who tried the journey. Cholera caused by dirty water, but they didn't know that. If they're on the Oregon Trail, everyone stops at roughly the same spot, maybe down by a river. Great, we can refill our water containers. But sometimes people also use the river for the toilet. Can you see that there's a problem there? They are taking dirty water, which led to cholera, which led to many, many thousands of deaths. Deaths also by accidents, drowning in the rivers, falling from the mountain crops, remember. Also, wheels tumbling off, smashing, breaking, people falling off wagons, broken bones. They didn't know about germs and maybe they got infected. Oh, accidents and disease, the final problem, ladies and gentlemen. There was some fear of Indian attack, but in the early years that didn't really happen too many. Many of the Plains Indians actually helped rather than attacked some of the early settlers. Later on, for reasons we'll look at later, yes, that did become a problem, the conflict. So there we see the problems on the journey west. Go west. Now I started off with get lost. Here's one example, the most famous, called the Donner Party, 1846. A group of about 300 people travelling in roughly 60 wagons left Independence. Maybe a little bit late, but they were well equipped, it was well organised. They got to Fort Bridger, ladies and gentlemen. Fort Bridger, bear number 2. So they've got sort of halfway, no problem. They're there in about July. Things are still going well, ladies and gentlemen. But then the party, for whatever reason, decides to split into 2. And the group we're going to look at, a group of about 80 people, led by 2 brothers, George and Jacob Donner. They took a shortcut. They're going down to California, down this green bit here. But instead of taking the traditional route, they thought they would take a shortcut, or what they were told was a shortcut. The man who told them was a mountain man. Good, you say? Mountain men, they're good. This one was a man called Lansford Hastings, and his shortcut was called the Hastings Cutoff. 500 kilometres shorter. Go that way. It's a great idea. The only problem was Lansford Hastings had never gone that way before. He just thought it would be a shortcut. He thought it would work. It didn't, ladies and gentlemen. The Donner Party took the shortcut, but they found that the rivers were swollen. There's no ferries to get them across. So they are delayed and delayed. And when they get to the Sierra Nevada, because they've been delayed, the snow falls. And boy, did it fall. They were trapped for the winter in the Sierra Nevada mountains. First of all, their oxen died, so they can't even pull the wagons. they ate their oxen. But then, of the 80 people, they're starving so much, some of the people die. And all the evidence points to the fact that those who survived, one of the reasons they survived was because they turned to cannibalism and had to eat some of their travellers. A terrible situation. When the rest of the party was rescued the following February, of the 80, only 46 were still alive. That showed the dangers of not having a proper mounting map when you went west, the Donner Party. So there we have the journey west. The different ways, the importance of preparation, and the possible problems and the dangers if you got it wrong. Now I'll return to this short little trail here down to Salt Lake City and Utah. And I said that was the Mormons, a religious group. And that's what I'll talk about in the next video. As ever, ladies and gentlemen, I hope it's been of use. All the best now. I'll see you soon. Bye now.